John Cullen, welcome back to the show. This is the YouTube preview for John Cullen's Las Vegas investigation. How are you, my friend?
I'm well, Jason. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm very well. It's very good to see you, John. You know, I think a lot of people are going to accuse me of trying to maybe jam a square peg in a round hole, having, try to theme today's shows around the 56th anniversary of the JFK assassination. But I think it's very appropriate. You and I have spoken about some of the similarities between the Las Vegas October 1st shooting massacre and the JFK assassination. We're going to be starting our show on patreon.com/IamJohnCullen and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth in 30 minutes. And that's a show that you and I have been doing for several weeks now. People have really been enjoying the topics we've been covering. How are you, John?
I'm doing great. We've been getting more and more subscribers as a result of this show. People that have been subscribing to you are learning more about what happened in Las Vegas as a result of this. Can you hear me okay? Am I modulating okay? Am I
you sound
too low,
fine.
too high?
No,
just checking
you sound
the level.
good to me. I've got
Okay.
it
All right.
turn down a little bit here. You know, it's always a technical challenge, John. I don't know that people really appreciate how difficult it is to keep this kind of work going. Like right now, my mouse is doing crazy things.
It's complicated.
It's difficult. But people can also go to the John E. Hoover YouTube channel, and you've got a library of videos there that you've been putting together basically since like October 2nd, right? John? Got a little delay going.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we've got you back.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. I mean, you're in a distant, undisclosed location, so we know that there are some internet issues from time to time. I think people are eager to hear your input on this. There was a lot of, what's the word that I want to use? A lot of speculation about your decision to name the channel John E. Hoover. Maybe not a lot, just one, really persistent social engineer who is speculating about that. Do you want to go over that again to let people know why you chose John E. Hoover?
Yeah. It's one of those things that when the John Cullen channel was knocked out, I was so disappointed in the FBI. They just weren't doing what we pay them to do, or if they were doing it, they're telling secrets to the American public and telling them lies. And as a taxpayer, that's not what I'm paying for.
Right.
And I keep having a hard time understanding when I told my congressman that I really need you to lie to me in the event that things like this happen.
Right.
And I don't think the American people as a whole feel comfortable with the FBI, the CIA, keeping these types of secrets. Now, I'm not interested where we keep the ICBMs. To me, that's a great secret.
Right.
I don't want to know. I don't care. Right? I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But this kind of thing, who killed these people?
Yeah.
I'm not okay with that.
No, I agree with
and
you,
I don't
John.
think the American people are. I don't think the American people are okay with that. And I think if the government believes that keeping secrets like this from the people that fund the government, the tax-paying citizens, then we really are dealing with this whole Fifth Estate type concept, where they are the nobility treating the commoners in a certain way.
Right. Well,
Right.
isn't the Fifth
And so
Estate what we're doing, the digital journalism revolution?
You and I would be considered the Fifth Estate.
Right.
Mainstream media is the Fourth Estate.
Right.
The Third Estate is the commoners. The Second Estate are the nobility. So that's everybody in Washington, the senators, the guys who run all these big companies, right? This is, the 100 white guys that run the world, right?
Yeah.
Bilderberg, right? That's Bilderberg. Okay.
Right.
And then you've got the clergy. The clergy is considered the First Estate.
It's interesting.
So, and this goes back to the early '60s. This whole Fifth Estate concept. It's interesting to look into. It came from the '60s, and it was kind of adopted then in this whole alternate media, and the notion of the Fifth Estate. In fact, I think Benedict Cumberbatch did a movie called The Fifth Estate
he
about
played Julian Assange. Yeah,
about Julian. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good movie. The thing I was going for with the question about the John E. Hoover YouTube channel, which is the place that people can go to watch your archived library of a lot of videos.
Yeah.
There was a direct allegation that
yeah.
you were working for the FBI
Yeah.
and that your choice of, J. Edgar Hoover was a tell. Address that if you would.
Okay. So, I don't know. I just came up with Johnny Hoover. I looked up what was J. Edgar's real name, and his real name is John Edgar Hoover. And so I'm a bit of a cynical guy. I like dark humor, right? So my favorite comedians are, Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Joe Rogan. I like dark humor. And so to me, I'm the anti-FBI. I'm the FBI that the people expect. I'm the FBI that shows them the evidence and walks them through deductive reasoning when it's appropriate, inductive reasoning when it's appropriate, and explains the journey of discovery, including the failures. So that's kind of, I just figured I'm the people's FBI.
Yeah.
So that's where that came from. I wouldn't give that too much thought because I didn't give it that much thought.
Yeah, and this is always the balancing act where people are trying to come up with cool and clever names, and you can sometimes read things into them, and sometimes there's something there, and sometimes there isn't something there. You and I have come to know each other.
You want to talk about cool and clever names? Yeah. So let's talk about John Cullen, because the John Cullen name is really important.
Yeah.
Most people here, most people who are listening tonight or recording this and listening in the future, may not be aware that John Cullen was the first American to face the enemy on American soil since the War of 1812.
Wow. That's good. See, I didn't know that was why you selected the name.
Right.
Thing with seeing the Nazis on the beach or something?
Right. So the whole now the story wasn't that suppressed back then, but it also wasn't really leveraged. And the reason is the government didn't want people knowing that Nazis landed in New York.
Right.
And made their way all the way to Chicago before they were caught.
Yeah.
Right? And it wasn't just one, it was a bunch of these guys.
Right.
So that's a story they wanted suppressed. And so that was, 1941. Then we get to something that happened in the 40s out in New Mexico that the government didn't want anybody talking about.
Roswell.
And then we get to 1963.
Yeah.
And I think it was really what happened in Dealey Plaza and LBJ's ability to just shut it down. It was magnificent in its, kind of evil way, right? So his ability to just shut this thing down was remarkable. And, and then, the history was written, Gerald Ford becomes president.
Yeah.
So
wait a minute. Gerald Ford became president after Nixon, you mean?
Correct. But Gerald Ford was on the Warren Commission.
Good point. Fair point. Touché, John. We've got Span Man with us in the comments asking if we're going to cover any new forensic info. I don't have the answer to that, but the focus for today's program, John, we're going to talk specifically about this whole concept of the FBI cover-up, and obviously everybody knows that the FBI did a lot to cover what happened in Las Vegas, but we want to talk specifically about the parallels between the FBI cover-up of the JFK assassination and the FBI cover-up of the Las Vegas shooting. And obviously, J. Edgar Hoover was a pivotal figure in the JFK assassination. I appreciate what you were just telling us, and I like that explanation of why you selected the John Cullen name, because you are facing the enemy on American soil here in the case where you've come to the conclusion, or I should say, you are entertaining the strong hypothesis that Saudi Arabian National Guard helicopters were utilized and were a key military asset in the Las Vegas shooting. We've examined the autopsies, we've examined video evidence, radar evidence. Everybody knows about the long list of anomalies in terms of the official story and how it's been presented. We've examined police body camera footage. So we're going to be kind of riffing a little bit. You and I will be digging into our own personal knowledge of how these things have been covered up. I think most people who watch Crowdsource the Truth are aware of the Church Committee hearings and the findings that were revealed about the CIA operations of Operation Mockingbird and et cetera. We haven't really heard too much about CIA involvement in the Las Vegas shooting. Am I incorrect about that, John?
Well, we haven't heard much, but at the end of the day, I think that it was the CIA's failure. So
why do you say that?
This is what we pay the CIA. Again, assuming my hypothesis is correct. So I'm not entertaining the hypothesis. The audience is entertaining it. I'm putting it forth. So I'm presenting a hypothesis, and you all get to entertain it. Right? You get to decide, is there, and the way it works with hypotheses is you look at a hypothesis, you say, how cogent is it? How cogent is the hypothesis? And what that means is how well researched, how well documented is it? Is the evidence corroborated from multiple places? Are there multiple observations of the same phenomenon, et cetera, et cetera? So when you look at this hypothesis that I put forward with more than 250 videos on the Johnny Hoover channel, it's a rather cogent, well-researched hypothesis. Now, the question then becomes, is there an alternate hypothesis? Well, the alternate hypothesis, just by default, is the narrative. And that's that Stephen Paddock shot all these people, 20 of them in the head, from room 32-135 without moving the chair and without opening the curtains. And there just doesn't seem to be evidence of that. And as we've discussed with Paladin the past 2 weeks, there's no gunshot residue on Paddock's hands. That's a big issue. There's other issues in his autopsy, but the fact that there's no gunshot residue mentioned on his hands, and the fact that there's no ballistic evidence tying the weapons in the room to the victims is tremendous.
Yeah. And you're tapping on some of the parallels that we're going to talk about. This concept of a patsy who is selected as the fall guy, who is identified in a stunningly short period of time with basically no police investigation, no forensic investigation. They just identify the guy and he's dead before anybody can say anything or question him or learn anything. And there actually are a remarkable number of similarities between the Las Vegas shooting and the JFK assassination. And I think that something that's happened since 1963 and has been accelerated dramatically since 2001 is essentially a merger of the FBI and the CIA. We've spoken to FBI agents like Robin Gritz, who were liaisons to the CIA from the FBI. We have heard about operations where people like Peter Strzok, who may be a CIA officer. There was a whole thing going on that somebody was looking into how he got in there. There were a lot of questions about how he got into the FBI. So we're going to be covering all of that in just about 15 minutes, John. We have our typical cadre of social engineers who like to mess around in the chat. And part of the reason we're doing these shows on patreon.com/IamJohnCullen and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth is that there are a number of malicious individuals out there who are dead set, laser beam focused on not only taking out Crowdsource the Truth, taking out John Cullen and the John E. Hoover YouTube channel, they actually want to completely disrupt your life. They want to disrupt my life. People have tried to dox members of your family, threaten you. We heard, Bart had this whole car accident. This is not a joke. This is not a game. I want people to understand that John and I and people who are doing this type of work, who are seriously doing this type of work, we're sacrificing quite a lot, our time, our personal safety. So we're sympathetic to the people who are on fixed incomes and don't want to pay $2 a month. I don't know if these people are ever buying a newspaper or a cup of coffee or how they pay for electricity to run their computer, but I'm sympathetic to those people. I think the people that are writing about it in comments are actually social engineers trying to discourage other people from participating with us on the broadcasts. So what we'll do, John, is we'll wrap it up and we'll have an extensive conversation over there. Anything you want to say in closing before we go? Did you freeze?
I think that there's a lot of symmetry and Vegas. I think there's a number. And I think that as we get into it, one of the questions that one of the people asked was, forensics. And as we talk about the forensics of the JFK assassination and the magic bullet, the bullet that was found on the stretcher at Parkland Hospital, things like that. There's a number of things that are very similar. And the thing that's kind of strange, I know that a lot of people are skeptical, but there was a Q post that talked about Vegas and talked about JFK in the same post. And it was strange. And it's like, well, where's this coming from? And I think just the nature of today, the fact that it is the anniversary of the assassination of JFK, and that we're talking about the similarities, I think it's important to look at that Q post, regardless of what you think about Q. Let's just look at what it says. Because there might be something in there, even if Q's insane, even as, Q is a joke. But if you go to qmap.pub and you go to Q post, I think it's 92, it mentions JFK. In fact, you can search qmap.pub for JFK and you'll find the mention. And in this post, it mentions the Las Vegas shooting and it asks about the connection between JFK and Las Vegas shooting. So I think it's apropos to take a look at that, and we're going to use that as maybe a springboard. And then the ballistics, the forensics. It turns out that the Carcano rifle that supposedly was used by Lee Harvey Oswald, the caliber is very similar to the .308 that was found in room 32. Oh yeah, and I'm going to show that to you. So we're going to look at that.
There will be lots of forensic evidence. I love how prepared you always are, John. That's great.
Yeah. So we're going to look at more bullets, and we're going to compare the .308 bullets, the common, the more common modern bullet, to what was used in the Carcano rifle, and what are the ballistic characteristics. And based on the ballistic characteristics of the Carcano, is that what we see when we see John F. Kennedy's head explode? Is that consistent with that? So I think that's what we're going to be talking about as we go into the next hour of the show at 5:30 on Patreon. The other news I wanted to share with the audience is there's a number of people that kept saying, hey, for whatever reason, I'm kind of angry at Patreon for SarkCon of whatever, I don't know. But could you do Subscribestar? And so finally, I set up Subscribestar. Now, there's nothing there yet, but there is Subscribestar. I am John Cullen, and I'm uploading videos tonight, East Coast time. So it's 5-something East Coast time, right? So later this evening, East Coast time, I guess West Coast time also, there will be new content going up on Subscribestar. And this is a video that will not be seen on YouTube for another few days. I may release it maybe Sunday night on YouTube, but I wanted to go out to Subscribestar to give people a reason to go take a look. This is a fascinating new video. It's over 30 minutes. I think it's 35 minutes long. Took me over a week to put this together. This was a real pain in the neck. And again, what I'm doing is assembling evidence. I'm assembling body cam footage, eyewitness footage, I'm asking simple questions, very simple questions, like, do you see any gunfire coming from the hotel? That's a simple. I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I mean, I'm just asking simple questions. And I can't find it. And I've been looking for 2 years. And the people with the comments don't seem to be able to provide a link to show us gunfire coming from the room.
Right.
They don't seem to be able to provide a link to a photo or a video that shows the window clearly broken.
Right.
So if that's the case, it sounds like there's a bunch of people with opinions, but I'm not really interested in opinions. I'm interested in evidence.
Yeah.
I'm looking for evidence of gunfire coming from the room. I'm looking for evidence that the bullets that were recovered from the victims were run through the IBIS track system and matched to the weapons in the room. I don't see evidence of that.
Yeah.
Now, did the
Well, John,
LVMPD
sorry,
and the FBI...
let me stop you, because we've got to
ahead.
make sure we leave enough time to start the show on patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com. I am John Cullen and Crowdsource the Truth. We've got a lot of people asking about James Files. We'll get into that. I have been in communication with a spokesperson for James Files. He doesn't want to be interviewed. I'm going to continue to try to do that, but we're going to get into all kinds of things when the show begins in under 10 minutes. Now, there's a little bit of a technical problem happening right now. The live streams on Patreon are A-OK. However, as soon as the live stream ends, there is a processing period that is approximately equal to the duration of the video. And as of last night, they're getting hung up. So I'm going to be able to fix that. But if you miss the live stream, you're going to need to wait about an hour or two to catch the video in the VOD format, the video on demand format. I'm in touch with Vimeo trying to figure out what's going on. But as I said, John, all these moving parts, so many different service providers between us and the viewers, is sometimes very difficult to figure out what's going on. And all this outside interference from the malicious people that are trying to stop us from delivering this information doesn't help. So I'll see you in just a few minutes, John. I hope our viewers will join us over there on Patreon and Subscribestar. Thanks so much for joining me for this preview. We'll see everybody at 5:30.
Thank you, Jason. See you soon.